Hi, it's Pris again, and I've been reading this book that I want you to see. I don't know if I can. It's called The Veil, and it's by Blake Healy. Let's see if I can see if you can see his name there. It's a little hard. Oh, there it is. Blake K. Healy. Anyway, it's very easy to read, and he's a seer. He was, had the gift since he was just a little tyke, and shares his own personal experiences with how he began to see in the spirit. And his parents were not in a church that believed in the gifts. And then finally, after some crazy things went on, then he moved to California with his parents and was in a church that did believe in the gifts. So at any rate, I'm at the chapter on angels, where he describes certain kind of angels. And so I felt like to share this with you guys, and I really encourage you to get the book if you can, because it's really, really easy to read and very plain language, and reads like a novel. So it's a wonderful beginner book, at least for somebody who sees in the spirit, and it'll really encourage your heart. Okay, angels adorn the stained glass windows and ceilings of the 12th century cathedrals, are the subjects in numerous books, and even had their own television program in the 90s. Okay, they've been an object of fascination and debate throughout Christian history. And while I have a problem with people becoming so fascinated with the angelic that they forget to pursue a relationship with the Creator, I've come to think that learning about angels is almost impossible to do without also learning about God's nature. In this section, I will outline a few of the kinds of angels I've encountered over the years. Though many of them are different in appearance and demeanor, I don't believe that they are different kinds of beings. Instead, I think that they are all the same species, so to speak, each with unique roles. A strong-shouldered construction worker is a hard hat, in a hard hat, looks fairly different from a skinny computer programmer and hardly sees the sun, yet both are human. Thinking of angels this way makes the differences in appearance and demeanor seem less odd. While the next few sections are in no way an exhaustive list of all the types of angels, he makes it clear, it is a good snapshot of the various roles that God's celestial servants play. Okay, so the first category, he says, is protection angels. After discovering that my visions were not the result of a dangerous chemical imbalance, I quickly began taking every opportunity to learn about the things I saw, and protection angels were some of the first spiritual beings that I saw with any real understanding. I used to perch myself near the back of the church so that I could get a broad view of what was happening in the spirit realm during the services, and for a few months, the majority of what I saw was no more discernible than an internal combustion engine that, would be to a caveman. I saw a lot of movement, and I had the distinct impression that all of it had a very precise order and rhythm that my inescapably human brain simply couldn't grasp. Then one Sunday morning during worship, I noticed an elderly-looking angel standing in front of the door to the foyer. His white-haired head was held high with an expression that was more regal than pompous, though it took a second glance to be sure. He wore shining silver armor that gave me a Greco-Roman impression. A long sword with an ornate silver handle sat at his hip. A small brass horn hung on the opposite side. I was fascinated because for the first time I could remember, the more I looked at this angel, the more detail I could see. In the past, any angel or demon I saw appeared either as an indistinct blurb or of shadow and light, or an unchanging clear image. This angel became clearer and clearer as I looked at him. I was at least a tennis court away from where the angel stood, but I could see the etching in his sword and the facets of his armor as clearly as if they were within reach. Letters were carved into the sides of the horn, although they were written in a language I'd never seen. And I noticed these details. I understood each one. I knew the etchings on the sword and armor were a badge of long and devoted service. I knew the words written on the horn of his side were a declaration that could break down any wall looking at them, and brought the story of Jericho to mind. And I knew each line in the angel's strong and aged face was a mark of his earnest commitment to his perpetual vigil. In seeing these things, I began to understand protection angels. They were not so much physical protectors as they were a symbol of all the encompassing protection of God, like the honor guard a king would send with a trusted ambassador. It is one thing for an angel to employ a large army of powerful soldiers. It's another thing for a leader to inspire the unflinching devotion that I saw in the lines of that angel's face. Seeing him revealed his identity as well as the nature of his creator. Worship angels. There was a period in my life when worship was an extremely frustrating experience. Being a 15-year-old boy probably had a lot to do with it. But at the time, I attributed this dissatisfaction to the 780 or so Sunday morning worship services I attended in my brief life. The church my family and I attended had the best group of musicians and singers of any place we'd been, a committed and talented worship pastor, and a senior pastor with an immensely strong value for worship. Regardless, I couldn't seem to bring myself to care. I talked with God more than anyone else, but I couldn't worship him on a Sunday morning without a sour taste forming on the back of my tongue. And I did my best to blame everyone else for this problem. I made excuse after excuse. That earthy lady twirling her flamboyant flags at 90 miles an hour is too distracting. This style of music is just not my thing. The worship team must not care that much about God if they all run out for coffee the minute they step off the stage. Half those dancing people are just drifting with the flow of general enthusiasm. They don't know what they're dancing for. I even began using my seeing gift to stock up on ammunition. How can I worship when the guy next to me keeps undressing the backup singer with his eyes? Why should I care what the worship leader is singing about if all he can think about is his marital problems? It's too hard to focus on God when the drummer is constantly worrying about a looking good on stage. Then I saw a worship angel. I had seen angels worshiping before. The colorful and often abstract beings adorned the stages and wrote on the words of every church body during every single one of those 780 services I had the fortune to attend. The beauty and grace with which they expressed their devotion to God was always a source of great enjoyment and encouragement. But until that day, however, I had never truly seen a worship angel. This angel looked young. Angels exist outside of time and are therefore without age, but she looked no older than 16. Two brightly lit angels danced in the air above her, twirling and twisting in a way that left several trails of iridescent light. She saw a plain robe. It was the same off-white color you would paint the waiting room in a dentist's office. That's funny. And had her hair drawn back in a simple ponytail. She sat on her knees with her face pressed down into the carpet and her arms extended outward, palms flat on the floor. Every few seconds she would lift her face from the carpet and gaze towards the ceiling. Tears poured down her cheeks, more in waves than droplets. Her arms reached to the heavens, stretching out desperately while still maintaining a posture of thankfulness. The look on her face caused my heart to skip a beat. Painful depths of longing were being answered by waves of fulfillment, so complete that the satisfaction and joy were more tangible than the ground under my feet. This cycle of yearning and gratification continued back and forth, faster and faster, until I could hardly bear to watch it. The angel must have felt the same, because just as I felt my heart was about to burst, she resumed her face-down position on the carpet. The action she performed may seem simple when described in plain text. This is because I find it impossible to express the level of heart that was put into that simple act of worship. Still, even as I write about it now, I find my hands start to shake and my heart begins to burn. Overwhelmed and ashamed, I turned away from the angel. The purity of her passion made the apathy of my heart feel suddenly pathetic and petty. Looking back at the show-off drummer, I couldn't help but see his desire to do well in his worship to God. The dangerously twirling flag woman looked more like a child overwhelmed with joy than an attention-starved spinster. Even the man who kept glaring at the backup singer had a heart that was visibly smoldering with hunger for an encounter with God's heart. It didn't take long for me to realize that I was seeing worship the way God did. No insecurity, selfishness, or sin was powerful enough to hide his children from his affections. His love instantly overcame it all. He never reprimanded me for having a bad attitude, and he never asked me to change. However, seeing his love for his people made it impossible for me to ignore the goodness that he put in each one of them. It made me sad that I had to let such trivial issues sabotage my desire to express my love to him. He certainly wasn't letting their quirks and inadequacies hamper his ability to receive their love. I'm going to stop here because there's a few more pages, and I don't think I have enough time to get it all in this one session, so I'll do a second one. Okay? God bless you.